this is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that. Remember this. You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages.
Yet another edition of Lembertopic Live here on Unprecedented TV, where we find the facts, kill the spin and tell it like it is as best we can. Opinions and facts, but ne'er the twain shall meet. If I'm expressing my point of view, I will tell you this. Unlike some media outlets, I could say. Indeed, there's an advert which I saw on one of the mainstream media channels which said, the fight for truth is on, to which I responded, so why don't you tell it then? That met some mirth in X. Do follow me on X if you can, at Lembertopic. Maybe that's where you're watching me now. And please share and like, and feel free to retweet this if it is your hope or your intention to do so. I'll be super grateful, because the more people watch, the more we can reach out with what we hope is a truly free speech channel. Lots of great shows. Claire Dyer is doing a great job with her shows at the moment with Dire Consequences. And myself, Mark Oaten, a former Liberal Democrat MP, do Live and Let Die. Tim Scott is going great guns with Tim Scott Uncancelled, and do join the Freedom of Association if you're minded to do so. He's their supremo. And Christine Hart is doing more and more shows for us as well. Inside the Mind, a fascinating analysis recently of computer consciousness and whether that's possible. We got pretty deep and heavy in that one. If you've got a great idea for a show, then come along and let me know, and we'll consider if we can make it. Also, please do have your say. You can usually contact me on X, and you can contact most of our presenters in the same way. But don't forget, we're also on YouTube. That's the end of the advert. Let's talk about the subject today. Britain, a nation of cowards? Why do I ask that? Well, Britain's finest hour was arguably at the end of World War II, where Britain essentially defeated Nazism, not alone, but had Britain capitulated, had Britain surrendered to Adolf Hitler, it's very likely that the Third Reich would have maintained its iron grip across the continent. And sooner or later, it's quite possible that Britain itself would have been invaded. Well, there was great courage, great spirit then. And in most polls I've seen, Winston Churchill is voted as the greatest Briton that ever lived. You can argue that. You can say that's even a historically slightly myopic point of view, because it was still only a century ago. But the truth still stands. Britain was proud and, more than anything else, courageous, from Dunkirk through to the D-Day landings and beyond. But has that spirit been broken? Why is it that when we have an invasion of unarmed men of fighting age, day after day, across the Channel, the authorities look on? Could it be that this is part of an orchestrated plan, or are they just too scared to take on this scourge, a scourge which is unquestionably leading to an increase in crime in our streets? Why do we have a police service which is determined to actually actively celebrate gay pride marches and everything that goes with that, but at the same time arrest a woman indulging in silent prayer outside a closed abortion clinic? Is it because she's the easy target and they're scared of the woke police policing them? Many other examples as well, perhaps one of the most disgusting being the apparent complicity between the authorities and the child rape gangs. Let's not call them grooming gangs. That's dressing them up to be something they're not. The rape gangs, and the seeming resistance by the Labour government, led by Keir Starmer, to speed up an investigation into crimes which may have been perpetrated against literally hundreds of thousands of people. All of that we can talk with now. with a man who's never backward at coming forward, a man who's a very successful author with a great book at the moment, Anglophobia, The Price of Being English. I haven't got that exactly right, have I, Nick?
A price worth paying to be English.
Well, I'm working on it. It wasn't bad. I hadn't done my notes properly. Nick, great to see you. Just tell us a little bit about your background in case somebody, amazingly, hasn't heard of you.
Kid off a council estate in South Manchester, single parent household, went to a failing school. And I mean failing school. My teacher got stabbed, I think it was 42 times in the chest while I was in school. Drifted.
Say that again. Stabbed 42 times in the chest.
Yeah, and music teacher, she survived. Never came back to our school though. She survived, and she was stabbed for confiscating a porno mag off a pupil. And he waited till after school, went back in the room, and stabbed her 42 times.
How did she survive that?
It obviously wasn't a sort of knife we have today. It was a much smaller knife.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, that was a sort of school I went to, and that didn't even hit the press. That didn't even hit the press in the early mid-80s. I drifted through my teens and 20s, but then I eventually found a career, found something I was good at, which was helping kids, stopping kids get involved in crime. I got a job with the council. I was then made redundant. I then used my redundancy to set up a charity to carry on that work, working on the streets in the evenings, helping kids to avoid a life of crime. Then I moved in, I started a new project, getting rough sleepers off the streets as well in Manchester city centre. For that work, I won an MBE. Then 5 years ago, I was cancelled for being a Nazi, for criticising Black Lives Matter. And then since then, I've been quite political. I've stood for several times now for election. And I'm all over social media at Nick Buckley MBE.
You're full of surprises, Nick. I thought I knew you pretty well, but I hardly know you at all. You were cancelled on the basis of an allegation that you were a Nazi because you criticised Black Lives Matter, the organisation that was willing to blatantly break the lockdown rules, while those people who were objecting to the lockdown rules were being arrested.
Yes. So I wrote a personal blog. I wrote an article on my personal blog, nothing to do with a charity I'd founded. But then an online mob accused me of being a Nazi, a racist, a fascist because I criticised Black Lives Matter. And half the article was about how do we improve Black lives in the UK. I was given suggestions about how we can do that. The board of the charity I founded panicked. They were cowards. They sacked me over email, hoping the crowd would go away. And then I decided I'm not having this. I'll take the board on. So with the Free Speech Union, we took the board on, and in 18 hours of writing to them, we made them all resign in disgrace. And I got control of the charity back.
That's a pretty big achievement, Nick. I'm going to digress for a minute. What was the secret of your success with that campaign?
I wrote a book on it. So my very first book is called Lessons in Courage, How I Beat Cancel Culture. And I analysed how I won. And I didn't want to say to people, copy the plan I followed, because you've got a different life to me. You've got different skills to me. You're a different person to me. So I wrote a book about how I use my experiences and how I got courage, knowledge from my experiences, from just like I said then, from going to a failing school and having my teacher stabbed 42 times in the chest, having a scar on the top of my head. I've had to have 19 stitches because I was attacked by men with iron bars. How I've had a gun in my face when I was being robbed. All those things give you courage. All those things you overcome. I had a speech impediment for the first 10 years of my life, and I was the butt of every joke because I used to stutter like that. It's hard to believe now. I never shut up. But all those things I overcame, and I used that learning. I used that bravery. I used those experiences to make me look at the board, make me look at the online mob, and say to myself, who the hell do you think you're taking on here? Do you think hurty words online is going to stop me? Do you think sacking me with a one sentence email online, and you think that's going to stop me? Have you no idea who I am? And because of that, I took them all on. And the lesson, the thing I learned most of all through that experience was how easy they were all to beat. I beat the online mob by getting an article printed in the Mail on Sunday, and I got thousands of comments online from around the world. And the second that article was printed, the online mob disappeared immediately. So then I was just left then with the board of trustees at the charity. And I realized they didn't want to fight. So we wrote to them saying, Nick Buckley is going to sue you all personally and individually. And he's coming for your houses unless you all resign en masse and in disgrace. And within 18 hours, they all resigned.
That's a huge story. And you say it quietly. One of the things I'm impressed with is you've never told me this before, because you're not an egotist. You're not doing this for show. You're doing it out of necessity. And very relevant to the conversation we're having today about whether Britain's become a nation of cowards. I suppose you wouldn't consider yourself to be one, would you?
Oh, absolutely. That I do.
What? You think that you are a coward?
Oh, yeah, I could give you all those examples. Sounds great. And if I finish the story there, then it sounds like I'm a hero. But I could give you more examples of me being a coward than being a hero, or being, someone who defended myself or defended other people. I'm just as weak and as pathetic as the average person. Sometimes it's the environment you're in. Sometimes the situation you're in. At that particular point, I almost died. I don't mean physically. I mean, they'd ruined my career. They'd ruined my reputation. I had nothing else but to fight back. There was nothing else I could do. If they'd have given me an option, I may have taken it. So there's a difference between being a hero and not being a coward. So being a hero is someone who does the right thing regardless of how it impacts them. That's a hero. Someone who's not a coward means they try their hardest to do the right thing, but they don't always do it. But the fact they're trying not to be a coward means that's better than nothing. And I put myself into that category. I try not to be a coward.
I don't think anyone could accuse you of being a coward. Honestly, I think that's incredible that you would even suggest it. I mean, it's just what you just described there is a pretty rough start and a successful finish. Well, you haven't finished yet, but a successful outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I've been fairly successful. Again, if you look at where I started, but I know I've let myself down many times. I've let other people down. I've been in situations where I knew what the right thing was to do, and I didn't do it. So I know I'm not a hero, and we need to be really careful of branding ourselves heroes, because if we're trying to put flawed people forward as a hero, then that devalues what a hero is. So we need to get away from devaluing what a hero is.
All right, define hero before we go back into the subject.
A hero is someone who does the right thing regardless of the consequences to them.
Okay.
There's a really good line. There's a really good line in Captain America, the very first Captain America film. And for people who don't know, he's a superhero in blue spandex and a special shield. And he says in
Ed
the film,
Davey, you mean?
Yeah. Someone like Ed Davey. And he says in the film, how does he word it now? He says something like, I've always wanted to do the right thing. And that's what a hero is.
Can you think of a hero?
They're far and few between, in our current age. But in the past, you've mentioned Churchill. Regardless if that was a sensible thing to do, take on Nazi Germany, should we have kept out and kept our empire? We don't know. It's easy having a different opinion when you're nearly 100 years after the date. Thatcher was another hero. She took on the establishment. She took on the unions. And there's other people who take on. So people who fight battles that everybody else thought was unwinnable. No, you can look at Gandhi. You can look at Mandela. There's other people who took on battles that everybody else thought not a chance in hell. And there's more heroes that we don't even know their names because they just turned out not to be successful. And we kill most heroes. Doesn't mean they weren't heroes. It just means they were shot in the head and didn't get through to the end of what they were trying to achieve.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating aspect to it. That's an interesting aspect. Okay, we're getting into philosophy there, and we used almost half the show to do it, but there we go. Let's talk about a nation of cowards now. To set the scene here, you and I have on various occasions talked about what we're not happy with in terms of the state of the country. Incidentally, I found this book, which is called A Nation of Cowards, by the Essays on the Ethics of Gun Control. It's an American book, I think, by someone called Jeff Schreider. It's not really directly relevant, but you're not the only people who have thought about this. This is, I think, to do with the United States, but I'm not completely sure. But what I do know is that we have a police force now that, as we discussed before, seems more happy to hang around on gay pride marches than actually stop people stealing phones. And I've got a particular bitterness about this because my phone was stolen twice, once outside Charing Cross. Police station, they said, we can't get it back. I said, look, I'm watching the phone because it had a tracker.
Yeah.
Go up to this house in North London. Well, we're not going to get it back for you, sir. And it seems to be something gone horribly wrong.
It has. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to, I think, where the rot really started to set in. I've thought about this many times. I trace it back to two things, 200 years ago. One of them was feminism and one of them was socialism, Marxist socialism. Those two ideologies came along. Now, we have lots of weird, crazy ideologies. They've always come along throughout the history of mankind. What was special about them two? Well, it wasn't special about them two. What was special was what happened almost immediately after that. We had the First World War and then we had the Second World War. In those two wars in the UK, we lost 1.25 million men from our country. They died on the battlefields, and that was 2-3 generations of men so close together, because it was only 20 years between those two wars. That wasn't enough time for the British to repopulate the bravery gene, to repopulate what we needed. So the weakest, not the weakest, that's a bit unfair. So the least bravest of men survived the wars, because you can imagine the bravest people die in war. They're the ones who are going to charge the machine gun nest, jump on the grenade, take chances to protect other people. So you're more likely to die in a war if you're one of the bravest. So we lost all those people. So inferior men came home, passed on inferior genes, and passed on an inferior way of raising the next generation of boys to become men. And I think those two world wars set the destruction of the UK. That's why we are here.
Well, it's interesting. Just before you go on, it's very apposite you say that, because Thucydides, who was a Greek philosopher, said this. You can see it on the screen now. The society that separates its scholars from its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools. Quite interesting. Now, I'm not thinking you're suggesting that the brave warriors were fools, but it does seem to me that we actually have a worse situation than that. In Britain, we have foolish cowards in charge now who wouldn't dream of going to the front line, but are very happy to commit other people and other nations' troops to the front line. I'm thinking of Ukraine in particular. And they don't understand international politics either. So from a circumstantial point of view, what you say does resonate. But you also make an interesting point. You're suggesting that in evolutionary terms, the bravest die and the most timid survive. And that generally weakens the courage pool of the society. Especially
if you have big wars so close together. So if you have a single war and the brave men die, you come home from that war and people are writing songs about the bravery of those individuals. That's why we still remember Nelson. That's why we still remember, Richard the Lionheart. We write songs and stories about these people, but such massive wars next to each other went bang, 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 and we lost it all. And then by that point, because we had to empower women to do many of the jobs, and we had technology, we forget technology emancipated women. It wasn't feminism, it was technology. It was the pill, it was the washing machine, it was the Hoover, it was refrigeration. They were the things that allowed the women to leave the home, not because they were trapped in the home, because they weren't, but that gave them more and more time with time-saving appliances for them to go, well, I can go out to work now because I've got all this spare time and I want some more money, and good for them. So that happens. Men then were competing against women, and that damaged masculinity. The then nutcase feminists came out. Men are evil, the patriarchy, you've got us chained in kitchens and you treat us. None of that was ever true. Women have been treated better than men through the whole of human existence, the whole of it. Doesn't mean they were treated fantastically, because everybody was treated poorly. I'm just saying women were treated slightly better than men were treated, and always have been.
That's interesting. And it would be counterintuitive to a feminist to hear you say that, because feminists would say, oh, women have been subjugated for centuries.
It depends what you mean by subjugation. So they were subjugated if you mean they weren't sent to war. They weren't executed. They weren't, they didn't have to work 15 hours a day. They had all the responsibility on their shoulders. Well, if that's subjugation, then maybe women were subjugated, but women could stay at home. Women raised children. Women responsible for the family. Everybody had it hard throughout history. I'm not saying they didn't have it hard. I'm just saying men had it harder. I mean, look at men today. Look at the stats on men today. In our society, men are more likely to be homeless, to be rough sleepers, to be in jail, to lose contact with their children, to be drug addicts, to be alcoholics, to die early, to be more likely to be assaulted, more likely to be murdered, more likely to be unemployed. Where's the benefits of being a man? So I'm sick of feminists with all their lies and propaganda, because it's all based on lies and propaganda.
Okay, hold that thought. After this very short break, where we share other programs you can watch here on Unprecedented TV, I want to go into exploring the practical implications for our society, whether the police have been infected by this cowardice, what we think about our politicians and what the remedies are too. And as always, I'll give you a chance to have a free plug of your excellent book as well, Anglophobia. See you in a minute. Our main problem here at Unprecedented TV now is that we've got something like 14 program series all at once. We've committed that terrible crime of expanding almost faster than we're capable of. But it's a happy problem, Nick, I have to tell you, with the shows that we've got. Very exciting time. I get up at 5, I work till 11. I'm not sure if I'm courageous for doing that, but it feels good. So there we go.
Yep. I remember you speaking to me after you've been doing it a week or two, and it was only your show. And several months later, look what you've achieved now.
Well, I wouldn't say it's taken courage. It's taken resolve. And it is a little bit scary because it's been a huge project, but I think that we're doing okay. And it's great to have the likes of you on it. There's no doubt that you add tremendous value. So I'm so grateful. And who knows, maybe you get your show as well.
Yeah. Who knows?
Squeeze one in for you, Nick. I think you already do some broadcasting, though, don't you?
I'm on YouTube every day. I'm doing podcasts every day. So I'm doing lots of stuff.
Let's talk about that, but not now, because We better go back to the other subject, but let's have a chat after the show. Let's return to the question of cowardice, and is Britain a nation of cowards? Now, I want to talk a little bit more about the police, and this is one which you and I both get very annoyed about. I have no issue with people's personal preferences. They can live their lives any way they want. I don't just mean in terms of sexual orientation. I would legalize all drugs, I would say, and just regulate them. But having said that, I think you've made a point, and others have. Now I've got young children. Maybe I have a different. My view might evolve, but the point about it is, I'm libertarian, I'm tolerant. But when we see the police, rather than policing parades, becoming part of them, I think that's a problem, because this indicates a certain overfamiliarity with the very people they're meant to be policing.
It is. The police have fallen. The police have been falling probably since the 70s. Again, it started with recruiting women into the police force. So we started lowering standards. We lowered physical standards. And then we wanted more ethnic minorities in the police. So we lowered standards again. Not because ethnic minorities can't be good police officers. It's because the ones who would make good police officers are pushed into being doctors and lawyers and dentists. So they don't see it as a career, because their parents, grandparents came from countries where you don't respect the police. You fear the police. So they don't have that cultural thing of, we respect the police. But the police have lost all respect. Police now are a propaganda political arm of whoever's in government and the fancy ideology of the time. Hence why you've got this picture up now. We've got police officers celebrating LGBTQ crap. People should be able to do what they want in their bedrooms as long as they're consenting adults. We don't need it on the streets. We don't need to promote it, and we don't need armed people who can send you to jail supporting it, because that sends the wrong message. Now, how did the police fall so quickly? Again, cowardice. We can look at LGBT crap. We can look at mass migration. We can look at Marxism. We can look at all these ideologies, all these problems. And they're all a problem. But behind all that, we have to say to ourselves, why did English and British men allow it? Why did we allow it to take a foothold? Why did we allow mass migration? Why did we allow weak politicians to always make the wrong decision, a short-term decision? Why did we allow it? Why did we start handing over our personal responsibility over to the state? Why did we allow it? Why did we let the government take so much tax off us? Why did we allow the government to tell us how to raise our children? And everything you say comes back to, why did we allow it? And we allowed it because we became weaker men, and we became basically cowards, and we're still doing it now.
That's an eloquent way of putting it. I would put it a different way. If you could just put that police officer up again, then please. Yeah, if that police officer was having an Extinction Rebellion emblem, it would be regarded as possibly as unacceptable. I'm not even sure that it would be. Or if there was some pro-Muslim emblem, it might be okay. But if they supported Reform UK, for example, or if they supported Brexit, then they'd be regarded as having crossed the line. What I worry about now is that the state and the very weak politicians you correctly cite have got so incapable of differentiating between their responsibilities as servants of us. They are servants, not our rulers, they're servants. And their own ideologies, that we get this mess, this ridiculous self-satisfied police officer who is just not doing his job right, in my opinion. But of course, he's encouraged to do it because he's brave and courageous for supporting this. And if you criticize it, then you're not brave and you're a bigot.
Yep, and he's been told to do it by his superiors. And I think me and you remember a time where that's an excuse that's not acceptable in court. Just following orders isn't acceptable in court. We remember that from just after the World War II. Policing in our country isn't what we think it is. We think it's about reducing crime, catching criminals. That's not what policing's about anymore. It hasn't been for many, many decades. It's too pink, it's too fluffy. It's about re-educating criminals, because they don't want to be criminals, you know. It's because of our harshness of society turns them into that. The LGBT community should be able to celebrate who they are. They should be able to be out in the open, holding hands and sticking their tongues down each other's necks without any backlash. So we need to support them. Immigrants coming into the country who want to celebrate traditions and norms from their homeland, you know, the homeland that's failing, the homeland where that culture has turned their country into a third world, those sort of traditions, we should have them here. It's amazing. And it started off again because we're an over feminized society now. It's all about pink and fluffy. It's all about harm avoidance. It's all about being kind. It's not about personal responsibility and duty and male roles and female roles anymore now. It's all been mixed up in the muddy water. And that's why we get this. But a big part of the police now is policing the balkanized part of the country. They have to police the Muslim parts of the country differently than the police the one next door. They have to. I'll give you examples of this. There's an area in the city of Manchester, a canal towpath, where men meet to have sex in public, in open. Have sex, have gangbangs in public. And that's called the Piccadilly Undercroft in Manchester city centre. And that's against the law. That's lewd behaviour. And we devised a plan to crack down on that. And the day we were going to announce the crackdown, we were told, can't do it. It might come across as homophobic because these men have been doing this for such a long time. It might be. So we had to reach out for a whole year. We had to engage the gay community. We went to pride events. We spoke to people. We did questionnaires. Do you think this is acceptable? And 99% of gay people said, it's disgusting. It shouldn't happen in public. And then the day we're about to complete our enforcement and go down there and arrest people, we were told, we're backing off. We don't have the balls to do this. That's Manchester city centre, and that place is still existing now, and men still go down there now to have open air gangbangs with each other.
So leaving aside one aspect, perhaps this reveals my naivety of why one would want to do that in a situation where clearly it could cause offence. My bigger concern is that if it was heterosexual couples, probably they would get arrested.
The same day the complaint went in, we would have had patrol cars down there. I was based in the city centre police station at this time, so I was part of doing this. We would have had police cars down there the next day arresting them. You can't do this. Lewd behaviour, £150 fine, and we're taking you to court. But gay men, can't do that. And then we had another example with the Moss Side Carnival. Why we have a Moss Side Carnival celebrating the Caribbean, I have no idea. Shouldn't be allowed, but we have it. It's not as bad as Notting Hill, but it's still a dangerous place to go. One year, the organisers didn't put in for an alcohol licence. And the council found out a few hours before the weekend carnival took place. And the council said, ignore this till after the carnival. There's no way we can get them a licence now, because that's to go to court. And if we say no alcohol at the carnival, it's going to be a riot and we're going to have to police it. So they allowed a weekend of drinking on the streets in a park that requires a council magistrate's license. They allowed it to continue knowing there was no license because they were afraid of any trouble. We keep policing different communities differently. We let them break laws. And the great one is the Pakistani rape gangs. We allowed them to rape our children because we treat them differently.
And the issue I've got here is that it was known. It was widely known this was happening. I heard about this when I was a member of parliament. I've been an MP for 15 years. And I heard about the Telford situation. It was not far from where I was an MP. And I thought it was a one-off. But it was just the one occasion where I think the girl died and they couldn't ignore it. It seems to me there's another great quote, if we can have a look at this. Here's another great quote from Chris Clee. We are a nation of glorious cowards, ready to battle any evil but our own. Or at least that's it says her there. I'm not quite sure. I thought it was actually Chris Clee that had brought that to our attention. But I think there's a truth in that as well. And it sounds to me that you're saying the same thing.
Oh, isn't that what every social justice cause is about? We're fighting evil apart from the evil I do. I want to improve the world and improve everyone's lives apart from my life and my community and my country. It's always easier to virtue signal. It's always easier to pretend, and maybe you convince yourself, but isn't it easier to try to fix global warming? Isn't that a wonderful thing to do? Knowing you have not a chance in hell of doing it. But do you want to stop the girls who live a couple of streets around where you live from being gang raped by Pakistani Muslim gangs? Isn't that a much worthier cause? Isn't that something you might be able to achieve? But no, because that means not only do I have to do hard work and I put myself in danger, maybe I'll fail. But saying I'm going to fight global warming, knowing it'll never happen, then I can never lose and I'll never be a failure. And so that quote's bang on.
It seems to me that, I don't know if it's true that a fish rots from the head, but it seems to me we have something rotten at the top of our government, a man who proclaims his atheism and seems to think by prancing around with Zelensky, he gives himself authority. He recently went to America basically to get his instructions from Donald Trump. And I didn't think it built his stature at all. And then he's got this ludicrous coalition of the willing. We've had meetings of that again recently. This has done absolutely nothing to make the world safer. But I feel that he and his Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, are totally incapable of providing the kind of support for the general British public that you and I would like to see.
Oh, completely. But let's not pick the low-hanging fruit here. Starmer is a waste of space. Starmer has failed, but Starmer hasn't got the PR and the charisma to pretend he's not failing. But let's go all the way back to post-Thatcher. Every Prime Minister post-Thatcher has been from the same template as Keir Starmer. They've all been weak. They've all been pathetic. They've all been globalists. They've all been either socialist or semi-socialist, meaning the Tories. They've all been cut from the same cloth. The only thing wrong with Starmer is he never had the charisma in the first place. But if you gave him charisma, it'd just be like every Prime Minister. Let's look at some of these Prime Ministers. Let's look at Theresa May. Theresa May wrote into law net zero. Theresa May stopped the police conducting stop and search for knife crime because she said it was racist. That's why we have a knife crime epidemic now. Tony Blair wrote into law the European Court of Human Rights. That's why we can't deport anybody. John Major, signed up to lots of the EU stuff. Boris Johnson opened the floodgates to millions and millions of migrants. It's every Prime Minister post-Thatcher. They've all been the same. They've all been either cowardly or they've all gone down the easy route of wanting us to be a global nation, which is just another thought, another way of saying they wanted global communism.
What's the solution? We're nearly out of time. What's the solution, Nick?
The solution is what we're beginning to see. The solution of what we're beginning to see on the streets. The solution is protesting migrant hotels, because every politician only wants to be elected again. And if they can see people they think may vote for them, they'll start doing something about it. Look at all the flags being hung up around the country now. Look at the roundabout somewhere that was painted with a St. George flag that a council is having to get rid of now. People standing up, people protesting. That's the start of it. And it's wonderful to see. My worry is this. Is this just a summer hiccup because the weather's nice and we've got light nights? Is this just for the summer? And come September, October, everybody goes, oh, it's a bit rainy, it's a bit cold, I'm staying in. I have no idea, is this going to continue? Because if these protests continue, which I really hope they do, maybe this is the British, the English man beginning to find his voice, find that roar, that lion heart. Is he finding it? Has he had enough? Has he had enough of his children being raped and gang raped and stabbed? Has he had enough of his women being afraid to walk the streets? Has he had enough of his jobs being, the wages is being paid, being driven down by mass immigration? Is he sick of not being able to buy a decent house because house prices are too high because of mass immigration? Is he sick of this government now looking at maybe starting wars so they can keep in power? And it's him and his male children that will have to sacrifice their lives for this. Are we finding our voice? Are we beginning to say no more? A few extra quid in my bank isn't worth it anymore. I love this country. My ancestors are buried in the dirt of this country. They created this country for us. Am I the first generation of Englishman, British man to say, I'm going to hand over a much worse country to my children because I'm a coward and I just want a slightly easier life while I'm alive? Or are they going to go, no, no more, no more, and find that Churchillian spirit and fight for what they know is right and what they need to hand over to their children? That's what I'm hoping.
Tell us about your book before we finish.
Anglophobia, available on Amazon. Well, this is the one before that, which is even more appropriate. England's My England. And I talk about why this country's been dying since I was born. But it's not dead, it's just been dying. The resurrection can happen. The resurrection might be beginning now in that spiel I just gave then. And the book tells people at the end what they can do to continue this fight. You all can't set up political parties, go on marches and all those sort of things. I get that. But the days of you doing nothing are over. If you think there's nothing you can do, then you're a coward. You need to start doing the little bits of things you know you can do. Share things on Facebook, talk to your friends, start being more patriotic, understand about the history of this country a little bit better, and then tell people, if you think you can sit this fight out, you can't. You're a coward. This country can only be defeated by English people. So therefore, foreigners can't kill us. Foreigners can't break this country. Only we can do it. And we need to make sure we're not part of the problem.
Yeah, sorry, I caught you a bit unawares there. It seemed to me England, My England is really the book that's most relevant to what we're discussing at the moment, because it's about
Absolutely
the resurrection of what we're doing. Is it fair to say that we're a nation of lions led by cowards?
We're a nation, up to now, we're a nation of lazy people who are quite happy handing over their personal responsibility to the state because it makes their lives slightly easier. Only makes it slightly easier over the short term. The medium, long term, handing over your responsibility to other people makes your life more dangerous. And a good analogy would be you have a sheep pen full of sheep, and the sheep thinks that farmer's amazing. He's a god. He feeds us. He looks after us. When one of us sick, he gets a vet in and pays for the vet. He's amazing. We love that farmer. But that farmer eventually turns up with a stun gun and a butchering knife. Just because you feel safe doesn't mean you are safe. You want responsibility for your own life because you're the only person you can trust.
Thank you so much, Nick. You really speak with such clarity of thought and such anger as well, I have to say. If you want to know more about Nick Buckley and his new book, then keep watching. He's often on our show. His new book is called Anglophobia. But that England, the book about England, our England, it's a really important assessment of exactly the same thing. Oh, England, My England, it's called. Hope you found that interesting. Do let us know in the chat, in X and elsewhere. If you like it, please do like it in the social media way. And feel free to retweet these programs too. The wider our audience, the more we can get our message across and the more shows we can do. Thanks again to you for watching. Big thanks to Nick Buckley MBE for being on the show. And we'll be back with many, many other shows. And it's just getting better all the time. Hopefully, we're not trying to beat the mainstream media, but we want to be the mainstream media. And then perhaps we'll be part of that great voice that gives the lion the roar, not just in Britain, but all over the world. I'm Lembit Opik. That was Lembit Opik Live here on Unprecedented TV. Thanks for watching.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet you all come to us young people for hope. How dare you?
Boring. 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 Boring.
You got it work. Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because you're in no position to dictate that.
That's exactly what you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
I call again for immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the return of the sausages, the hostages,